that moment that we're birthed into the world, when maybe even the cord is cut from the placenta, right? When we move into that space of being birthed in trauma, especially, now there's a certain amount of that energetically we're holding in our body. And we don't know it as a baby, you know? We still feel that we're one with the mother, even when we are outside of the mother's womb. But the more that then we're continued to be separated in some sense, and then the more that conditioning becomes a part of our energy system, the more then we become programmed to experience separation. The moment that we start to understand ourselves as our name, and we know now I am and you are, we have some type of way of looking at the space that is mine and the space that is yours, and now there's an interaction with what you are and what I am. We get that programmed even more as soon as we go to school. As soon as we go to school now, we have a grade given to each student. We have tests that we have to take in order to receive a score that separates us from everyone else in the class. We get praised when we do well, and we get punished when we do poorly. We go home and maybe the parents are the same. Why didn't you do well? Like, why didn't you do better? Now there's a thing that goes along with it that says that there's reward and punishment, and now this becomes more separation. And then we start to experience the fear of punishment, and now there's this fear coming in us that further separates us from love and praise that we might naturally be able to have if we didn't need it to be linear and mathematical and so left-brained. And so then the more that we're conditioned to experience through the left brain, the less and less we interpret what it is to be in a pattern or to be in flow through the experiences that we know in the right brain connect us back to that oneness, connect us back to what is not separation. And in whatever way that might show. Traumas, all of these things continue to further separate us, because then we push things away. Then we say, I'm afraid and I don't want that, and so I need to be here in myself. I need to experience what it means to be okay. And then if I have that in my life, I'm not okay. And so now I separate this from me because I'm putting up a wall in order to hold on to what I feel I need to grab in order to be complete. And then it's all based on that projection of fear of experiencing fully what is life. And these fears further put us into that separate space, that duality. Religion does a lot of it as well. It's either good or bad. You're going to heaven or you're going to hell. There's only one way for you to get to heaven now, and you need to repent your sins, and that means you're sinning. It means you've done something wrong. It means that now what you chose was not the right thing, and then it could be any other choice you would have made would have been the right thing, but only what you did was the wrong thing. And so now you're separate from what could be also good, or how this could be used to further empower you in some way, or to be used as a learning experience. You stop getting the opportunity to learn, or the choice to see it as always learning. And then when you put in consequences for actions, again, you have cause and effect. And cause and effect is continuously putting things into their own little categories without seeing the entire spectrum. Separation creates creates that competition. Yeah. And that competition versus cooperation is a very left-brained way of experiencing the world. Then we get all sorts of wars about it. We get that I'm better than you, I need more money, I am in lack, I have no sufficiency, I am always longing to feel whole, and then I don't have that wholeness because I'm not the same as you and I see you as different. But I think what even maybe that comes down to even further is the judgments. And then we start to judge ourselves. And then when we judge ourselves, we have that experience that really separates us. And it's almost like the retracting magnetics, like they're repelling. Why? Because I judge myself every time I see this outside of me. And then I hold on to something that I think I need because I don't see it in you, or because I feel I want it. So I'm judging myself for not having it. And then I'm judging you for your experience of this life. And now, again, we have even greater separation. Me personally then, because it's always when I feel like we continue to work through, or that we have to keep on looking back at because it hurts, right? Our own judgments hurt so much because it's our own perception of ourselves. And mine would always be that I'm just not good enough, or I couldn't possibly do enough to please someone. And if it comes down to that, like I try to please my mother because she never sees me as being able to do enough to make her proud. That's my own perception, right? That's my judgment of me not being able to do enough to make her proud. And then when I shifted that, when I started to see that everything happens for a reason, everything that I am, and not everything that I'm doing, but everything that I'm being, is more than enough. And that this is what is shifting everything. Everything is starting to change in that sense that the perception creates the experience. And so holding space and engaging in these conversations and in being in dialogue about how it's all flowing and what it is that's shifting is shifting that. It's completely shifting that. I don't see it anymore. I've done things in a sense that could very, very easily be looked at as wrong, or how could she do something like that? Why would she do that? And then it goes even beyond my mother, and it ripples into the other family members, and then they have all their judgments. What I stopped doing was receiving the energy of the judgment, and then allowing myself to hold on to what I know to be more in my truth about where I'm at, versus in my head where I think they think I'm at. Every time that we take something personally, we are receiving judgment. As soon as we internalize the perceptions of someone else, then we have accepted that perception, and now it becomes our own interpretation of this system of information that is not only around us, but being consumed by us. And some people, they're angry. So they look for everything around them that they can throw anger at, that then can trigger that person into their anger, that then they can get more of. And then that's one way that the judgment of I'm angry, and now that's it, I'm just going to be anger. And then you see that person, whoa, that person's so angry. You create the judgment just by saying that about that person. Now that energy is in you, anger, something connected to their anger. Now that person says, great, I've disrupted them. Now they've been triggered into something that flows with my anger, gobble, 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 gobble. And it keeps on going. So how to shift that is such a process, and it's different for everything that we're shifting. Some Something for me had to do with these student loans that I have from university, where my relationship with my mother has always been very interesting. It's always had some strange ways that judgment comes in, or that, again, like I said, I'm not good enough, right? And I held that, and I accepted that. Okay, I can keep trying though. I can keep trying to do more, to do better, to do better. I can keep giving what it is that I think is going to make this better. But by looking at something needs to be better, I created a problem, and then I tried to solve it. And then there was the judgment in myself that I have a problem that needs to be solved. And so then it got ingrained, you know. It gets held in the shoulders, it gets held in the back of the head, and then you hold this thing that creates these tensions that say, I have a problem, and that's my own judgment. Now I'm judging myself as the problem for something that needs to be solved. But if I don't go back and look inside, how am I ever going to solve it? It's only when I go into the shadow of myself and feel out where it is and what I'm really holding on to that I get to find the truth inside of it. And I've really, really found that in those darkest places, these tiny little crevices of the mind, these little nooks and crannies of the experience, is where sometimes the most light and insight comes about. I never go looking for light in any sense when I'm, especially, let's say, in a meditation or an inner dance. It's go to the places that hurt, go into the pain, and go experience it. And then the more I started experiencing it, especially in the inner dance, the more I was okay with experiencing it in my waking life, in my everyday experiences. I would be triggered. I would notice I was triggered, and then I would actually sit with what that is. That made me angry. I'm angry. Oh my gosh, I'm angry. What is that? I'm experiencing anger. I'm seeing myself experiencing my anger. Now I'm observing myself in the experience, and I'm no longer being consumed by it. Now I can actually expand that space, and I don't have to judge it because I'm not being consumed by it. And I'm not looking for anyone else to be a part of it, but I'm holding it. So how do I shift my own holding of my perception of what this is? And then I say, it's okay. I'm allowed to have that anger, but I'm also allowed to transform it. And then in the acceptance of what it is, I start to see the truth of why it's there, and then I get to shift it. They all start in the mind. The problems start in the mind. The problems start when we see that we have a problem. When we lock ourselves into one pinpointed perception, that perception now becomes this energy that says, I'm solid. It doesn't get the opportunity anymore to vibrate as a wave because we switch it. That light that can be either particle or wave gets locked into, this light is now a particle. It's a pinpointed thing. It becomes a thing. As soon as we see anything as a thing, we create it into existence. Now we've only manifested that here's the target, here's the arrow reaches the target. We stop having any of the different possibilities of experience between the arrow and the target, and it just is that. And that's now the problem. This thing that we see as the only possibility. And so the mind holds on to that. And the mind then holds on to it in a way that it continues to gather energy. It consumes all of these other things because now I don't know what to do. I'm scared. There's a fear of looking at the I don't knows that continues to gather energy further into the confusion or the frustration or the anxiety or the fear associated with the I don't knows, or now that this is a problem, I need to solve it. As soon as we separate it into the duality, we stop allowing for all of the different possibilities to exist because we put it into the this or that, the either it is or it isn't. And then now the problem, again, because the mind is connected to the emotional body, it's connected to the whole nervous system, it's connected to the ways that the chemicals wire and trigger responses, synapses, and how they connect to other parts of the brain. This problem that exists someplace might even be formed because of memories we have from the past. Oh, I know what this is. I know what you're doing. I've seen this before, and now that's a problem because I know exactly how you're going to respond. And so now I see that. Because why? I'm connecting back to something from my childhood. I'm connecting to something that my father did or said or how he reacted. And now this part of my mind is connecting to this present moment that's triggering a response of pain and fear that exists in my body because I remember what it was like to feel that happening in me when I was a child. And now I'm feeling it now. And now that I'm feeling it, my body's feeling it. It's connecting this point in my mind back with everything that radiates physically through the body when we experience anything that is good or bad or whatever it might be. Yeah, exactly, because it's in the perception of the experience that creates the problem in us. Because, again, though, we're so conditioned, we're so programmed to see the news as here's a bunch of problems and maybe they're being solved or maybe we can't solve them. But because these 2 buildings in New York City crashed, we need to be afraid and we need to fight terrorism. Oh, these buildings crashing is a problem that needs us to see terrorism. If you don't see terrorism in these buildings crashing, then you're not on the same page. Then you're not with us. And if you're not with us, you're against us. And now you're either with us or against us. And so if you don't see this problem the way we're telling you to see it, then you have a problem. Then it's not that this is a problem for us looking at it this way. It's that you have a problem. You don't support the government. Why wouldn't you support that we get to invade your privacy and check your bags and tell you that, oh, no, this isn't racial profiling. This is just us doing our job. And then we separate things even more. Now we fear all of these things and it sits inside of us. It connects back to our own situational problems or perceptions of problems. Now this whole global scale terrorism project that also comes back directly into the country, that continues to separate it from all of the people elsewhere, that says that, oh, no, we need to protect ourselves, everyone else is bad, like, don't even go travel to other countries, they're all poor, they're all unhappy, the world is a terrible place. We're safe here, we're safe in our bubble. Now we've created this idea of safety. When do we feel most safe? When we're at home or when we're with our family. And then they connect it back to, okay, now go out and buy things, because if you have more things, then you'll be even happier with your family. And then you'll be able to have all of these things that, again, are happy things. And now we've made bigger problems because people don't find happiness in those things. And so what is connecting back with them is still this, I'm missing something. I have a hole in me. What is this hole and where is it? It's in me. Oh my gosh, I'm lacking. I have a problem. It's often either the sight of the blood or the expression of the parents and their panic or fear of us being hurt that makes us feel hurt. So once then we see this on our body, if no one's telling us, oh my God, are you okay? We don't connect pain to fear, to an attachment, to an expression in the body system that says, ouch, and now says, I shouldn't want that. And when we do have those things happen, when we do have the parents rush to the child, pick them up straight away, not let them make mistakes that aren't really mistakes, it's a learning process, then we create the separation. Now the body experiences that this pain is bad, and so I don't want to feel this pain. Or I'm sick, I take medicine, the pain goes away. We see that the child has some illness or is getting sick or has fever. Oh, fever is bad. Fever is a bad thing. We have to get that down, give them medicine. And so all of these things start to connect back into the physical body. And so then the older that we get, the more of these things we connect with, the more ways that these things, as soon as they trigger back to the response of the memory of the childhood thing, create a locking in the system. And it's different for everyone. Sometimes it comes out as cancer. Sometimes because there's been certain traumas either in childhood or in abuse, or even in just the way that the mother and the father have a relationship with each other, starts to hold energy contractions in the body. And those energy contractions, when contracted enough, become these physical particles that manifest as a tumor or manifest as a slipped disc in the back, or start to radiate throughout the body as muscle spasms, or so many different things. And the physical part of it always comes first from the emotional connection, and where the emotions feel the experience first, then the body is an entire system too that's in tune with it. So when it's open, it can be expressed in that motion, in the movements, right? When we do exercise, when we're athletic, right? We're moving, we're helping to keep our body conditioned in a way that supports its health. When we do yoga, we're moving ourselves into these postures that allow us to feel what it's like to be in our body. When we're afraid of what it's like to be in our body, we consume lots of bad foods. We start to externalize all of our own pains. We lose the connection to what it feels like to be inside of ourselves. And the more that we lose touch with our own physical self, the more that gets solid, the more that starts to create these tensions and pains, the more that then it says, you haven't looked at me and you haven't experienced me. You're avoiding me. You're avoiding yourself. And now that creates that part that really becomes physical. The first thing that we can do to come into our own process of healing is to recognize that we are the healer, that we have within us the answers to the things that aren't problems. And when we stop seeing it as a problem, we start to open up the possibilities for how we interpret our experience. When we see it physically, we know it's there. We know that there's something in us. Now, how are we looking at it? Are we looking at it as something to avoid? Are we looking at it as something we need to get rid of? Are we looking at it as something that surgery, by cutting it out, is going to fix? If it needs fixing, it means we have a problem. And as soon as we hold that perception, we'll always have a problem. So how do we shift our perception of the problem-solution relationship in order to bring back inside of us a clarity that we're already whole, that the body, the mind, the heart, the whole system has the answers, that in doing well for ourselves, in coming back into that love of who we are and the trust of our own heart and mind, we start to shift it. We expand time. We no longer need that tomorrow at the doctor's appointment, if this comes back positive, I have a problem. We now get to say, okay, when I go, it's okay that it's positive. If that's positive, great. I have something I can look at. I have something I can look at inside of myself. What is that thing? What am I looking at? And what does that feel like? I'm not afraid to feel the pain. And when I feel the pain, I transform my relationship with it, and then I shift what it feels like, and then I dissolve that thing. That thing expands.